In today's video, I want to talk to you about how expectations can kill creativity in landscape photography. Expectations are the death of creativity in landscape photography. So take this photo for example. I mentioned it in this video here, but this is my favorite photo from my Canadian Rockies trip this past winter. It's a photograph that I was only able to get because I was able to shed my expectations of a particular location. Bit of a backstory to this image. So first, I was up near Saskatchewan Crossing. I was photographing some burnt forest up there, and I had a plan to head to Lake Minnewanka for sunset. And I had a particular shot in mind, namely this one. I took this later on in the trip, but I wanted to shoot super wide and get a photo of the mountain with, crazy fire in the sky on top of it. And in my mind, though, I knew that a shot like that would be pretty tough to get that night because the cloudy conditions that were forecasted would kind of give me some really flat, boring light. But I was stubborn and I pressed on. So once I arrived at the lake, I knew immediately that I wasn't going to be crazed by amazing color in the sky that evening, but that expectation in my mind of what I wanted the landscape to be, that was entrenched in my mind. And so I went looking for a composition anyway that would mimic kind of what others had succeeded in doing at this location with, great light. So conditions were brutal though. Snow covered the entire lake, so there was no cracks, no bubbles, nothing like that. And there was foot traffic covering every potential composition along the shoreline. And there was super flat, boring light from all the overcast clouds. So I spent almost 30 minutes looking for a composition, but it ended up frustrated. My expectations had caused me to become blind to any of the photographic possibilities of this location. So the first thing we need to do before we are able to take kind of more creative photos, I believe, is to remove our expectations of a place. So practically, how do you do this? First thing for suggestion is you can leave behind a lens that might force you into a specific shot or photo. Or maybe as you wander, either kind of write down in your phone or on a piece of paper or take mental notes of things that you're enjoying that are speaking to you. Before a trip, maybe limit your exposure to other landscape photographs of the location. So for example, I do use Google Images and Instagram location search when I'm scouting for different kind of photo opportunities at a location, but I'll try to avoid those professionally finished photos, especially right before my trip when I'm leaving. I don't want my mind filled with those compositions that others have gotten. And ultimately, if we're unable to remove those expectations prior to coming to location, we aren't going to be as creative as we can be. It can also leave us frustrated, as I was, and completely ruin the experience out in nature. So my frustration of these unfulfilled expectations I had of Lake Minnewanka almost caused me to leave. And so as I toyed with this idea of just giving up and going back and going to bed early, I remembered that flat light, that was supposed to be my favorite kind of light. That's what I said in my light video. So I decided maybe I should head back to the car and do something about my situation. So I left my wide angle lens behind in the car, which forced me into a state of no expectations. My initial problem was that nature wasn't giving me the spectacular light or the conditions that I wanted for that wide scene. So instead of just leaving or forcing myself into a wide angle shot that simply wouldn't work with the light that I had, I decided to take advantage of the light I was given, and I forced myself to look only at those details. So leaving my wide angle lens behind, I went onto the lake with my telephoto lens, and as soon as I stepped back on the lake, the photographic potential of that location opened up for me. And I began to see things I wasn't looking for during my initial walkthrough. I saw the open ice that was too close to the mountain for a wide angle shot in a brand new way. Now there was potential there. There was possibility for maybe some ice abstracts. There was also photos to be made like this one, but from some of the aspen that were along the lake edge with the darker forest behind. And there were scattered thriving trees along the burnt forest on the far edge of the lake. So before I had removed my expectations, I was blind to these things. Now I saw them because I had connected with what the landscape was giving me. I was bringing my own story and my own emotional connection with the land and an open mind to these landscapes. This allowed me to see in a more creative way. I was able to take a photograph that succeeds in telling a story about Lake Minnewanka in a different way than any other photo with kind of a mountain and beautiful light and the clouds above it ever could. And coincidentally, these types of photos typically go beyond just adding to the story of a particular place. They also have the ability to connect with a viewer and yourself on a level that goes beyond just, kind of, hey, that's a pretty photo, or hey, nice shot, man. Once we share these expectations and are open to what we uniquely notice about a landscape, we can create photos that connect with ourselves and our viewers at a deeper emotional level. This photo, for example, tells a story of solitude, of perseverance, of stubbornness, and steadfastness. I've called it steadfast. This one is about uniqueness, connection, and diversity. We have the branches reaching out, but there's some interconnectedness with the forest behind. So all these photos have the ability to tell a story in a way that this scene, this wide scene of Lake Minnewanka, simply will never be able to do. So when we remove expectations and embrace what we emotionally connect with in the landscape, what we are getting excited about, we can create more personal, creative images that certainly mean much more to us and can tell a very unique story. And that's my quick thoughts on expectations and creativity in landscape photography. I hope you found this talk a little helpful. Hope it kind of maybe shone a light on a little bit of kind of your own experience with nature and landscape photography. So give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video, and hit that subscribe button if you want to hear more like this. And until next time, guys, cheers, and thank you so much for watching.